The Chess Olympiad 2024 take on each other. India has a 2-point lead but need to play carefully. Susan makes the move e4 here. Of course, she was also a very aggressive player and plays e4. And Gukesh will most likely take the pawn back. Yeah, he takes it back, not giving Fabi any real edge there by knowing what move he's going to play. And the shake of hands, off we go. Gukesh opens with 1 d4 this time, not e4. And Caruana responds back with knight to f6. We have c4 on the board. And pawn to e6 played. What's Gukesh's choice going to be? He goes g3. Wow. So already kind of playing the Catalan, but without an early knight f3. How does this change things? For now, Gukesh puts his bishop on g2. And Caruana plays the slightly surprising knight c6. Generally, you don't develop this knight very soon, but I think Fabi is looking forward to transposing into d takes c4, knight c6, a6 lines, and that's why he's played it. Rook b8 played, and now the idea is to take and maybe push the pawn to b5 when the rook will be out of the diagonal. So Gukesh very quickly takes it on d5. It's good thinking in the opening by Gukesh there. In comes a check. Okay, you can play bishop d2 here, but Gukesh goes knight c3, which is also a good move. And now will black take knight takes d5, but that would give white a very nice edge after queen c2. And so he plays ed, and bishop g5 played here by Gukesh, pinning the knight. And we have some kind of a Ragozin territory that we are heading into. h6 played, and he's going to chop this off. So Gukesh not really very attached to the bishop pair in this position. Takes on f6. He feels like this knight is a very important piece and needs to be taken out. Queen takes f6 played by Caruana. And Gukesh simply castles. Now the threat is to take the pawn on d5 as the knight is no longer pinned, and so Fabi takes the knight on c3. This leads to a pawn structure which is quite imbalanced. Gukesh now strengthens the center, but at the same time knight a5, knight c4 could be a weak square there. He castles. And how is Gukesh going to continue next? He brings his knight to d2. Maybe the ideas of e4 are in the air, or he might go e3 and c4. So a lot of central play in the air. Knight e7 played by Fabi. He wants to play c6, maybe then bishop f5. Black seems to have a decent position out of the opening. And he plays his pawn to e3. Bishop comes out to e6, stopping c4 for the time being, because otherwise white would have gotten a very nice structure. Queen a4. Now the idea is to attack the pawn here. Also maybe c4 is on the card somewhere. So a6 played here, and now you can see if you play c4 takes, knight takes would be met with b5, and black wins a piece. So Gukesh goes e4, breaking in the center, and c5 by Fabi. An inaccurate move, but Gukesh has to find this move, queen a3, and he does. Beautiful. The point being that if you take, I have e5, queen g5 and knight f3, and the knight here is hanging. Caruana is slightly surprised. He plays b6 now, and Gukesh seems to have a nice position. Rook b1, trying to put pressure down the b6 pawn. Rook e8 played, and maybe d takes c5 is a great move. Just winning a pawn. Yes, he does it. D takes c5. If b takes, I can take, and take on c5. That's quite possible. But Caruana plays d4 and Gukesh plays c4. The game starts to get wild and interesting. Caruana goes queen g5, attacking the knight. If you play f4, he will take queen takes c5. Gukesh brings his rook to d1. I think taking on c5 with the queen is a great move, but Caruana takes with the pawn. I think he wants to keep playing for a win and keeps the queens on the board. But now Gukesh gets f4. Good move there by Gukesh. And the queen goes to h5. The queen is well placed there. And Gukesh keeps on the offensive. He pushes the pawn here. The bishop is almost trapped. And after rook takes, the point is if you move the bishop now, c5 pawn is hanging. So Caruana has to find this move, queen e2. He finds it. Good move there by him. F takes e6 played here, winning the bishop, and now he takes the knight. Gukesh chops off another pawn. King takes f7, and he's going to take the pawn on c5 now. In the resulting position, you will see that black is now a pawn down, but he has some compensation. King g8, the compensation being the d4 pawn, extremely strong, just 3 squares away from queening. He goes rook f1. Powerful play here by Gukesh, but Fabi is no one to mess with. He's very good. King h7 is a fine move here, and Gukesh finds another good move, queen e5, pinning here. If white gets bishop h3 and bd7, he would be winning, but a check is fine move. King h1, and now the only move to keep going, d3. Of course he finds it, d3 on the board. Now Gukesh goes bishop h3, which is also the move to test black. d2, the pawn is just 1 square away from queening, but Gukesh stops it in its tracks with bishop g4. If queen e1 here, king g2 is winning for white. So queen d3 played by Caruana. He's trying to look at the pawn and the rook both. So Gukesh brings his king to g2. And now the c4 pawn is hanging. Yes, queen takes c4 is on the board. And now the a2 pawn is also weak. So a3 could be an idea. But Gukesh goes a4. And actually Fabi can take this pawn, because after rook f7, you go rook g8. And then if you take the knight, I queen, and it's kind of equal. But he plays queen c6. And Gukesh now brings his queen back to d4. Important moment now. Knight g6 would be good, but Fabi blunders here. Queen g6. He wants to put pressure here and here. But now rook f4 is a powerful move. Will Gukesh find it? He has 1 minute 30 seconds on his clock. He thinks, comes down to his last few seconds. Plays it. Amazing. With 21 seconds on the clock, Gukesh finds rook f4, the best move. And now the d2 pawn is going to fall. Queen g5 played. Well, the point being, if you take here, he wants to go knight g6, pinning here and trying to exchange a few pieces. But Gukesh now is very alert. You give him a chance, he takes it, and he does not settle for equality. He wants to win. h4. Queen has to go back, quickly chops off the pawn. Queen takes d2. He's now completely winning here. He's totally better. The king is weak. Rook b8 played. Maybe Fabi hoping for some counterplay on the queen side. But queen d7 is an amazingly strong move. Finds it again. Queen d7. We are on move 38. Gukesh finding one good move after another. h5 played, trying to somehow dislodge this bishop. He goes bishop e6. Strong move here. The e7 knight is hanging. Rook b6 played, and if you take on e7, he wants to take on e6. Gukesh finds another amazing move. Bishop f7. All moves found in time trouble. Gukesh gets up. He knows he's winning. Queen d6. He looks at Fabi's score sheet. Yes, it is move 40, and then comes back because 30 extra minutes will be given, and now trades the queen. Rook takes d6. But this is all over, guys. Gukesh is going to chop off the h5 pawn. He's now 2 pawns up. This is just matter of technique. Very easy win. Gukesh has managed to outwit the human machine. That too in time pressure and complications. Gukesh handled it much better than his opponent. Now bishop e2, attacking the pawn here on a6. Caruana saves it with a5, but the bishop now gets a very stable square on b5. Knight to e5 played. And this is now quite an easy task for Gukesh. Rook f5. Meanwhile, on the other boards, Pragnananda lost his game, Vidit drew, and Arjun has won. So Gukesh's win helps India to win the match against USA here. King f2 played, and he is on his way to victory. Caruana seeing that there is no real hope now. King coming in. Pawns can also advance. He looks to the side and shakes his head, offers his hand in resignation. Gukesh scores a win. What a tournament this is for the youngster. He beat Wei, now beating the live ranking world number 2 Fabiano Caruana. Unbelievable chess played here by Gukesh. Clearly the gold medal winning performance on board 1 is being shown. India beats USA. A big victory here for Team India, and they've done it in style. Very